Thank you very much, and welcome all to our third webinar to do with ElectricalOM. Today's is all about the UK forms, and hopefully we'll get a little bit onto the mobile app. This is what we're going to be covering. Is really going to be split down over two webinars, because there's a lot to cover in this particular this point with the software. So here we're going to look at, to begin with, the core software itself, how the UK forms work, how we create standalone certification reports within ElectricalOM. Then we're going to look at how we can create certificates from existing designs. And then also those designs having the information integrate and passing information backwards and forwards between those reports and certificates and the design itself, and how those interact together. Hopefully, if there's time, we may get started on the mobile app, but at the moment we're thinking it's more likely that we'll be looking at the mobile app into the next webinar. But we'll be looking at how we're exporting information to the mobile app, how we can import information from the mobile app back into the design. Creating reports in the mobile app, whether it be standalone or again from the design, and putting information back into ElectricalOM. And then we'll be also looking at various functionality within the certification itself. So we'll be looking at things like recording of observations and limitations, taking a look at how history of test data, looking at what the core software is doing when we're collecting data out on site and we're putting in that test information. What the output within the software is telling us about that data we've collected. As well as then we'll be looking at various other aspects around the basics that operate within the UK form. So looking at how we produce data and lists to do with the engineers and various sites, test meter information, and all these various little facets as we go through in the next hour. So as I said, today's will be sort of more of a basic overview of what we're doing with our UK forms and the mobile app. Next webinar, we'll be looking at the more advanced features and taking a closer look at some of the functionality that really sets ElectricalOM apart from any of the competitors out there, and in terms of what they're doing with collecting data in terms of the software and data that's collected from certification, how we're making that data really meaningful. So with that, I'm going to put you over to Dimitri. He's going to get started by showing us some of the core features in the software. As usual, for those that you have attended before, there is both the chat on and also the question and answer features within Zoom here. So if during the webinar, if there is any questions or anything you have, if you can put them up in the question and answer section, I'll be tapping away in the background, answering as many questions in the background as you guys want to throw up. You may have certain questions that I'll throw out to Dimitri to actually show you during the webinar, so we'll get a little bit of information backwards and forward there. And I hope you all enjoy the seminar today and the webinar that we're going to do, and leave it now to Dimitri. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you everybody for joining today, and I hope everybody's safe. So let me get to the interface here. Okay, and just hide this. All right. So what I'll try to do today, I will try to give you an overview of the UK Forms add-on, and I will try to cover common cases and how we believe people are, the testers are usually, doing things, and why we believe that there is a way to improve that, experience of completing this kind of certificates, of course, and reports. So the first thing you need to do when you're dealing with the UK forms is, of course, to have a look at this UK Forms tab, which is the add-on we're going to talk about. And of course, you see that we have a menu here with the various options to get started. And we'll try to make this as straightforward as possible. So the first option is just to create a certificate. So if I just click there, will give me a pop-up screen to create a new certificate. Here you complete the type of certificate and the descriptions and the IDs. And of course, here you see the type. So at the moment, we have the model, the certificates based on the model forms.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few people that are going to be asking a little bit about that. We will be looking to add various different types of certification in there. So we are going to be looking at emergency lighting. We'll be looking at fire alarm, all these various others that you do see in other packages. They will be being brought in and populated in there as we go.
Yeah, thank you. So of course, during this process of creating a certificate, you can define, the client, the installation, the company of doing the testing, and of course the engineer responsible for that. And so these are kind of common stuff that you already seen before. So I will try to go through this really quickly and focus on the stuff that need more attention. So now I'm going to close that. I'm not going to accept that, and go through the rest of the options here. So here is a client's installation where you can just create a new client. So simple as that. So client company, okay, and then you complete the name, and so on. So here is my client, and then for each client, you can have a set of installations. So new address from here, so home A, so on. So name of the occupier, so on. And we have some other shortcuts just to get some details from the client, which is referencing that installation. And that's it actually. So when and this is, just to create a new client. And then you can create the companies, like following the same process. Okay, so company A, registration numbers, contact name, so on. And one thing here which is important to know is that you can assign this company to belong to a category. Okay, so you can easily filter that company when you trying to search companies. So it can be design, construction, or any combination of these options here. Now for each company, you can create the same logic with, you can do the same logic like creating, engineers. So this is an engineer. So, and of course, some other details here. Now, for the engineers, you can browse to choose a signature. Okay, so if you have a file which with your signature, you can quickly reference that file. So here is my signature, okay, which is going to be used in your certificates. And of course, here we do the same logic like assigning, details about this engineer, what's his responsibilities, so we can easily, filter him or her when we are selecting the various details. So now you have another option here to set the default instrumentation. Okay, so you've seen that those are devices, testing devices, which are already pre-populated. And the reason that those are already pre-populated is because we have some predefined options here in the settings. Okay, but of course you can go to all instrumentation and create new devices like that. So let me just close that, close this as well, close the companies, and then this is the testing devices I was talking about, where you can create new devices, or edit existing devices. So if I edit a device, you can choose, the details of that device, the model and serial numbers, asset numbers. And of course, again, where this device should be categorized, like it's a multifunctional device, so on. And so this is just to keep track of when you have to, do the calibration. And of course, any device can be assigned to an engineer, and, based on, the details I've shown earlier. And of course, this is the assignment process, which you choose the engineer and, which device you'd like to assign to. And then we have the settings where the first time you access this environment, it's good to go through and, define them. So one setting which is important is to define your scheme logo. Okay, so what's your scheme, the governing body which you're trade with, and the color, of course. So the certificate looks relevant to what you like to present. So some numbering, to number the certificates, the default engineers, which is going to initialize each certificate when you start a new certificate. The default instrumentation, so here is the default ones that I was talking earlier. And some other settings when you're dealing with specific parts of installation certificates or condition reports to go through and complete some predefined settings there. And the last option here is a database. So I'm gonna just spend a few seconds here to explain the concept here about the database, because it's important to understand how the software is operating. So what it's saying here is that all the certificate information is stored in the EOM project file. Okay, so we don't have a database that you store details of the certificate there. So all the test results, all the the structure of your certificates, or the filling details there is part of your project file. So you have a file system which you save your designs and stuff like that. So in that file, you save also the test, the certificate as well. But we have also here an MS Access database file, which is responsible for maintaining the history records of your certificates, and of course, with indexing, and of course details like clients and engineers and devices and this kind of stuff. So those details are not part of your EOM file, but are part of this MS Access file, which is located in your system, and you can share it across the network if you have multiple engineers working on the company. So that should be a requirement when you are using this this package. Okay, so you need to have this access runtime, and if the test connection fails, it will ask you to either do an installation of the 64 bits or the 32 bits. In any case, we are here to help. So if you are struggling with this setting, just let us know, and we'll quickly do a screen sharing session and help you with that. Okay, so this is what this is about. So it's important to understand that the database file will not hold your testing results. You're not, want to hold all this certificate detail, which is heavy eventually, especially when you're dealing with many, large installations with many distribution boards and final loads there to test. Okay, so that's the main structure here. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just create a new certificate. You see the defaults are pre-populated. If they're not pre-populated, you can just quickly reference one of the clients. We have filtering anyway, just to filter the quickly the selection here. So I'm going to just accept that. And here is one domestic electrical installation certificate. Okay. With the color which is already predefined. And to access this, you can just double click or just click load selected certificate. And this is the certificate that we just created. So I'm gonna go through this structure here to explain to you the details here, and then I'm gonna just create some dummy values to show you how you can actually fill some test results. Before doing that, I would like you to know that this is not the a release version. It's something we're continually working on, and we're going to release it soon. So you may find some, buttons here which you're not able to see in your current software, which of course is going to be available soon in your system as well, with the update which is coming soon. Now, since this is located into this UK Forms module, as any other module, you can just double click on that to extract this from the main screen and, maximize the window like that. So it's easier for you to follow the certificate fields. And of course, if you have multiple screens, you can move that to another screen, which makes it easier to have, the actual software running with the design details and of course the certification part on the side. Now, these are typical stuff. So you can, we follow, the common model forms from BS 7671. So you can easily, follow this idea here to complete the various fields. So in any case, you can map the fields with the database. You can just click on the relevant button and pick one value, which is the relevant one for you. We have some various shortcuts here to, get the installation from the client, or maybe get the details from just copy them directly here. Those were the details. So just copy that there. And some other shortcuts which you can find useful when you're dealing with this, certification filling. Each field here has a spell checking. So when you see some spelling mistake, this will be highlighted as well to help you with that. I think it's quite straightforward the way it's it's completed here. There's no really any fancy thing going on. One thing you might want to check here is when you have a signature assigned, then you have to check that you want to use that signature in your certificate. So it will not go and automatically apply that signature for you. You have to check that option so that the signature will be defined there. So at the page 2 now, it's a similar case here. But the only difference is that you're gonna get this field from design button, where since here we have some details which might reference the design. Of course, at this moment, there is no design details here, so there's no need, or there's no actual use of that. So there's nothing to reference. Of course, you have to manually, go and check any of the values. But if that's the next thing which I will show you after finishing with that brief overview, is how you can take advantage of the details you get from the design to automatically, speed up this process. So I think those things are quite straightforward. You complete this with the various details that you have. And one other thing which might be useful is this check button here, which is going to highlight any missing information. Okay, so it's going to highlight which fields are not completed yet. And of course, we have an extra button here, which is going to allow you to fill with non-applicable or, all these empty fields.
Yeah. Okay. Just quickly, we had a couple of questions pop up.
Yes.
So one of them being, is this webinar about filling in forms only? No, we will be showing how our forms, so we're just showing you the basics at the moment in terms of what our forms are doing and how the data is getting inputted in there. We'll be showing you some of the features that are unique to the software in terms of how we're also taking data directly from the design side of the software. So it will populate information, how that will also reverse backwards and forwards there. We've also had another question on how multiple engineers will be able to enter test results on large projects. This will tie into more of the mobile app side, which we're hoping to get to today as we go through and start to show you a little bit on the mobile app side, but that will more likely be something we'll do a bit more in depth in the next webinar.
Yeah, of course. So I will talk about, this multiple engineers, situation, which is really important, especially for large sites, and the concept behind the software and the logic and the, we are trying to, implement here, and the flexibility you get with that particular logic. So now I'm gonna just quickly go through an overview, because there are people, just looking at this for the first time. So it's good to, just introduce them to this interface. So the next page here is something which is common as well, is your inspection and test schedules, where you can quickly, check the values that you'd like to fill here. We have shortcuts, for example, if you like to fill, common values with based on the category selection here. This will be highlighted like that. And we have other options here to fill the empty with NA as well. And of course, one which is quite important is the templates here, which you can use to predefine, some values which are commonly used in your testing, and then save them as templates. So if I am assuming that this is my common case here, and the rest will be NA, I'm going to save that as a template. Okay, so I'm going to call this Dimitris, whatever template. This is a file, so you can share that file with any of your engineers, any of the your colleagues, so you can just reference that. So I'm going to just reset that, this option here. So excuse me, reset, kick outcome, no. So now we have a clean, list. So I'm gonna just load that to get, the list which I've just created before. So you can quickly, create some templates and save them for future use to help you with speed up the process here. So now the distribution board level, which is, the most, significant one in terms of, productivity. You see at the moment it's blank. There's no distribution boards included here. And the reason for that, of course, is because there is no design details to reference from. But still, you can insert boards which are not design referenced. So it's just boards which you believe should be part of your testing. Or if you want to use the module as a standalone certification solution, this is the way to create boards. So you can add a new board here. You see we have two categories here. We have the design boards, which this is blank due to the fact that there's no design panel yet. But you can use the blank board detail, where you can start, filling some common cases here, like the ways, and if it's a single phase or three phase, and some typical way data that you like to use in your in this board for all the ways details. So I'm gonna just click OK here, and this is my created blank board, and you can see here, which is the board appearing, and some notes. So this is a draft. So you see draft. So you can categorize each board with a status to help you easily order them or sort them based on the status to locate them, especially when you're dealing with many boards. You have hundreds of boards here. So it's quite important to make sure that you are looking at the right section of the installation. And of course, there is the other node, which is non-ref, which is mean non-reference. So there's this panel here is not being referenced from the design from here. So that's to indicate that this is a manual process entry which you have to go and undertake. So you have to, go and type, all these details, which eventually is going to be automated through the design process. I'm going to show you next. Okay, so so that should be 0.4, I guess. So we have some, things here which might help. So like the maximums, there's stuff which might be automatically pick up through the settings you apply here. And of course, you see how you fill test results. It's quite straightforward. You can tap, you can get the value applied here. You can type your own value if you want. And you can right click as well and get, some shortcuts here, like fill column with the same. So it's gonna fill exactly the same option here to the rest of the columns to speed up the process. So the same with the F10. So if I press F10, it should do that there. Of course, as I said, this is a manual entry process, so there is no actually, any intelligence, let's say, behind that to check what's going on. And this is what we like to introduce with the concept of getting details directly from the design. Okay, so I think that's the common case here, which most of the people are doing when dealing with certificates. So manually they go and fill up all these details. But the problem with that is that who guarantees that those values that you enter here in the design are correct? Okay, and who guarantees that are being verified, or how you are sure that those devices or cables are actually tested in a real simulation scenario, which might be the case, to improve that process here. And this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to put an extra level of safety in that process to make sure that all these details are verified before are actually presented to the client or finalized to the certificate. Okay, so quickly I'm going to go through the rest of the stuff here, which is the details of the panel, of course. So this is what information you are looking at the panel when you test it. So some typical stuff that you're assigning and your testing instrumentation. You see, pick up the default ones that we choose, and the default engineers and this kind of stuff. Now you can order the DBs here. So if I have another panel here, let me do this DB2, and you can order them based on what you believe the right order should be. Okay, so DB2 is first, DB1 is second. And then you can remove panels, you can print them individually. So print selected. Okay, so it's gonna create this printing for you. You can print just the schedule, or print all the schedules, or just a print blank report, DB schedule, which you can go on site and then fill if you want. You can exclude that from the final report or certificate. So you can exclude any DB. So if you have a list of DBs and you want to just print, or you want to include some part of this installation, you can exclude some of them or exclude selected. So you can quickly choose that to check which you like to exclude. So, and then you can look editing. So if you're happy with editing and you don't want someone to go and check that for you, you can log it, or you can then assign this to under review or completed. So under review means that you completed that and you want the the QS to go and make sure everything is okay before completing it. And after you complete that, the software will give you a warning that this should be that this will be logged for editing. So you cannot revert that. And you have to make sure that this is what you are expecting to deliver to the client. So make sure that everything is correct. If you keep that draft, then you can go back to, if you keep that under review, then you can go back to draft anytime. But if you complete that, you cannot go back to any of the other options here. Okay, so I think I gave you a quick overview of that. The other thing which you may see on new versions here is the support files, where you can add some PDFs to your certificates to be applied at the very end of the report or your certificate, like that. So just some PDF files. Let me just pick one. Okay, which is which of course you can open like that if you choose to open that. So just a report from a design. And then you can also add notes. So notes is like having a document, a word processor document in, to be filled with your certificate. And you can also bring, you can also copy and paste and put pictures here as well. it behaves similar to a word processor, tool. And then this can be, with the right click, can be renamed to, so additional nodes, so on, that you like to include in your report or into your certificate. And you see there is a node here included. You may want to have some nodes here, but you don't want them to be included in your report, so you can right click and uncheck this option here. So now if I go and apply and print, I will get a sample of the certificate that the software is able to produce. So you have your logo, which you can define through the project settings, your scheme logo, which I've shown you how you define you can define that through the settings of the UK forms, and all this test results. See, here's a signature, common stuff. These are the panels. This is the additional nodes just created. And this is a supporting document. So you see this PDF is attached to the very end of this report. This is just a design, sample design, which I've just included. And you can just export that to PDF or just print it, okay? So that's, I think I've shown you the very, very basics now. And what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna close this so it will go back to the UK forms. I'm gonna get rid of that. And I'm gonna show you the way we're proposing things to be implemented. Okay, so we're proposing things to be implemented through a structured way, which follows a design, which has been verified and allows you to make sure that all the details applied or input into that, into each field are the correct ones. Okay, so how we create a certificate now, like that? Of course, you're following the logic which you do when you're doing a design. It's exactly the same logic like when you fill up a certificate. So I'm gonna just create a single face source. I'm gonna double click. I'm gonna input my ZE, okay, 1.5. The short level, the default level is automatically calculated here. So I'm gonna accept that. And then I'm gonna insert my main panel, okay? So I'm not gonna do many things here. I'm just gonna quickly reference some, implement some common cases. So I'm gonna choose a main fuse here, okay? I'm gonna choose a typical cable type and installation method, length and size. So I'm gonna apply that. Here on the incomer side, we have the main incomer device. That can be like that, okay? So I'm not accessing the schematic, but if I want to access the schematic just to get an idea of what's going on, this is what's going on there. Of course, you can change the ways from here as well. So let's assume 8 ways. And now I'm gonna leave that there because I have the main panel. I'm gonna leave this empty. And then I'm gonna create a new certificate, okay? The same one. And then I'm going to access the distribution boards. And you will see that the software already created 2 boards for me. The first one is the main. So it's the main cable that you need to check, and the second one is the distribution board, which at the moment is empty, okay? So you see all these details will be automatically applied when you're doing any insertion here. So you can either use this environment to right-click insert, and you'll see that it will update, the columns here, the rows here, based on the relevant value. And if you want to edit that, so if you want to edit any of these, you can just double click to access the editor. So for example, this might be lighting with 10 points. I'm going to assume 30 watts per point. You don't have to fill that information, but it's going to help you because eventually, if you're aware of this idea, of this, details, it's going to validate the voltage drops and other stuff, which is difficult to, go and test on site and this kind of stuff. So it's going to be a good feature to have this as well. So I'm going to pick a typical cable here, flat twin and earth. I'm going to stick with clip direct. Now, this length, the length of this run, it's really important. Now, when you're doing tests, you're measuring the resistances, right? So the resistances, is a way to actually get that length, because you know the cable sizes, you know the cable type, you know the installation material, this kind of stuff. So you know the factors involved in that resistance measurement. So you can reverse engineer that logic and get the length of that cable. And this is something which you are doing to make sure that the test results versus the design results are correct. Okay, so I'm gonna just leave that there to 15 at the moment. This is 1.5 integral conductor, that's fine. So I'm gonna choose an RCBO. So the other thing which is important here as well is that by specifying specific manufacturer details, you're able to actually get the MAC ZSs from the manufacturer's specific devices rather than generic devices, which just makes things more specific, of course, and more comprehensive. So I'm gonna choose something like that. So, and other stuff like for current limiting as well, which again is important to make sure that you're having them included in your process. So I'm gonna apply that, just quickly go back to the UK forms to see that we have this row updated now with the relevant values. Now, as I said before, this might be much easier to handle. I mean, it might look quite frustrating to go through each of these screens to see what's going on. But as I said, if you have dual screen scenario in your office, you can just have them next to each other. And what you can do, you can just quickly, create one from here, apply, and this will be automatically applied here as well. So it should not be, any difficult to have them directly in front of you, considering this concept. Considering that you're looking at many details at the same time, which is what we want here. Okay, so let me take back. Okay, so now I've created this certificate, let's say, with all these details, and you see that the software is highlighting some options here. So I mean, here you have RCBO, so you need to fill the test results for the RCD. That's why these are highlighted with red. You need also to fill the ZS results to check, with the max ZS value. So all this information coming directly from the design, and at the same time is highlighting problems which you see here. So this is an 18th edition certificate of a new installation. And here it's telling me that we have lighting circuits which are not protected by an RCD, which is something which the regulation wants us to go and comply with. It's a domestic premises installation. You have to use RCD if this is a lighting kind. Okay, so if I choose, for example, an RCBO, this should go and fix the problem there. And you can see that the UK forms will get rid of this highlighting thing, meaning that that's a clean design, row. So nothing to worry about, because everything here is already, validated through the calculation engine. And this is what we actually try to promote here, the idea of having an extra level of safety when you completing all these values to make sure that you're not missing, any part of it. And of course, you might spot details which you haven't, considered during the testing. So another thing which speed up things, of course, is to make sure that you're going to use the functions that we are providing here for the design as well, which is copy and pasting, which is shifting. So all these details will enable you to quickly manage and rearrange the rows for this certificate without the need to type things manually or move things manually. Just have this rearranged through the design process here, and then the rest of the stuff will be completed on the certificate. Okay, so now we have this like that, and that's okay. But let's go to the page 2 side, where we have this field from design. So at the moment, this is blank. So if we press field from design, you see that it's going to pick up, the values which you have defined at the design stage. Okay. So that's, and of course, if there's something which we need to go and modify, we can do that as well. Okay, so the distribution boards, we have fill all distribution board details as well. So I will do that. Then if I access this distribution board and go to the details, I'm expecting to get, the same fill, details from the design directly to this part here as well. Now, let's assume that we have another panel here, the submain. So I'm going to right click, insert. So let me put it on the first way. So I'm going to right click, shift down, right click, insert this distribution board, single phase. Okay, then you see that the second one is appearing here automatically. Okay. Now, if I go and complete the test result here of the ZS, okay, so let's say 1.1, and go back to DB2 and get the details here. You see the ZS will be appear here as well, because we're talking about the same testing result. And of course, we have the option of to fill from design as well to get the relevant details. So we have some shortcuts, to help you with this concept. Of course, knowing the basic functionality, you can still copy and paste from other panels directly from here to speed up the process like that. So you don't have to creating things from scratch, as you know. Okay, so there are many details, of course, to go through, but I guess it's something which explains the behavior here. And now the one thing that we recently created is this status thing, which you can quickly, define to each of these panels. So let's assume that DB1 is completed or is under review. Okay, and then you can check to sort the panels. So you see completed is first and the draft are second. So are following next. So imagine you have hundreds of panels here. It's going to sort them based on the status and to make sure that you quickly read the relevant value. Now let me go and fill the test results. Of course, this is not locking the certificate, it's just, or the panel, it's just the status to help you identify which panels are the status of each panel, okay? So if I go here and go and fill a test result for this guy here. So let me go and put 0.0.1, so quite a small value here, 0.015, okay? So some values which I'm assuming that's the ones. So I'm going to apply. I'm going to fill the empty with an A. So there's an option for that. So fill the blank with an A just to complete that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go from draft to completed just to show you something we recently created. So if it's completed, you see it's logged. You can right click and say submit test results. And what this will do will submit the test results that you define in this certificate to each of the circuits you have in your model. So if I have this FC1, if I go to this FC1 to the test tab page, you see we have test results here. At the moment, it's blank. And what this is actually recording the history records of the test results of this particular circuit, which eventually is going to give you an idea of the of what's going on during the life cycle of this circuit, and eventually for the whole installation. So if I go back to the UK forms, right click, submit test results, And then here, you see this is submitted here like that, okay? So the 0.01 that we just created. And here we have an extra warning option, which is about tests. And what this is doing is trying to find an inconsistency between the test results and your design details, because it's going to give you an understanding of what this installation, what the state of this installation is, and what the state of your design is, and get an understanding of what's going on, because eventually those two things should be identical. So I'm going to uncheck, the options for the rest of the warnings here. And you can see here that the software identified 3 inconsistencies with a percentage. Okay, so the first inconsistency is about the design ZS and another design ZS here. And here is 1 or 2 not matching the tested. And there is a 98% of error between those two. Because if you come here to the design part of this, you see that the calculator R1 plus R2. Of course, during that process, we're applying some correction factors for the temperatures to, to make sure that we are talking about the same, conditions, because the resistance, of course, is changing based on the conditions during testing. So, but still, you see, it's a really high, figure here. The difference is quite large. So there is a problem here, of course, which it might be during the testing, it might be during the design stage. Of course, if it's during the design stage, usually this is based on the length of the run, because the length of the run is the one that's going to, get the final, value of these resistances. Of course, the cable type is correct, the installation method is correct, the sizes are correct. So the only thing which is not clear is the length. So based on that, if we are importing directly from the testing and we want to update our design, we can right-click and say estimate circuit length, which eventually is going to, give you a the length that this circuit should be. The actual length that the circuit is actually is. So this is quite less than a meter, of course, because of this low resistance. And of course, you can apply that there as well for the first, the length of the run for the first lighting point. So it's not matching, based on the design parameters here, but you get the idea of validating the design with the test results and understanding the state of your network, because eventually this is a system. This electrical installation is a system which you want to maintain across the years. So if you have correct design details in that system, eventually you're going to get test results which eventually will match with your electrical details in the design, and you're going to be aware of what's going on here. So that's something we are improving and working at the moment. And I think I'm running out of time, fortunately, and I need to move on to the quickly to the mobile app, just to give you an idea how you can test things on site. So let's assume I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to delete that. Oops. Yeah, it's locked. Cannot delete it. I'm going to create a new one anyway. Or no, let's not create a new one. I'm going to just file and export that to mobile EOM. And then I'm going to choose a, what you are exporting here is a file which if you share through the cloud, or you can quickly open it to your mobile app. So I'm going to quickly share this to export to. So this is the exported details that can be imported in the mobile app. And what I have here is the mobile app, the mobile app running. Okay, so, and then let me open the mobile app here. Okay, now what we're gonna do, we're gonna import from file. And then I'm gonna go through my Dropbox folder. and get that file. So that's the export to, just create it. So import completed. And I'm gonna go through this mobile app quickly just to introduce you that. So here we have the menu, which you can access the various screens. The first one is the home screen, which you can create new projects. You can load from saved projects, or you can import from files that I just did. And you can share your project file. So if you want to import everything back to the main software, you need to share that or email that. Okay, that's the home screen. And then we have the project info, which is about, you know, the details of the certificate we are dealing with. Inspection schedule, of course. Okay, so the outcome of this, you know, inspection schedule. So you can filter directly from the mobile app. So you just pick a value, you can put comments if you want. So we have other options here. So fill all with pass, clear all, fill empty with an A. So when you see this button at the top, is to give you extra options like that. And here is a save button. So the save button will be highlighted as red when you need to save the project. And the project is saved under the name of the project info. Okay, so, and you can put an option ID, an optional job ID here as well. So I'm gonna call this demo 123. Okay. And then the next tab here is the structure of the network, the electrical distribution. And you see we have a similar structure here. So we have the same arrangement. And each of these circuits can be accessed through the circuit editor by double clicking on that. So it will give you the circuit editor, which is a similar circuit editing feature that you get on the main system, on the main software. So you see the ways, you see the cable that we included here. So if I go to the main, you see the multi-core XLP cable with the same details here. Cable armor as a CPC, of course, and some devices that we use and the in-camera settings that we use. So all these are referenced directly from the design. So after having that, you can, of course, make sure that you can navigate quickly and just check that everything is there. It should be. And then you can go to the test results. So before going to the test results, we have the circuit details tab, which is quickly referencing each panel with the structure of each panel like that, like a grid view, a table view, which might be useful, especially when you're using tablets. So if I just hover that like that, so you can quickly check, the details there without accessing the, the editor. And you can, of course, do changes. You can just apply changes here if you want. So at the moment, you might not know of course, from the design, you're gonna get the lighting points, but if there is a change there that you want to apply, you can directly go here and just pick the relevant value. The same with any of these, details and the rating of the devices as well. And of course, if you want to access the editor, you just double click, and it's going to give you the editor screen from where you can define any of the information you'd like to define. And of course, the next tab here is the test results, where you need to go and fill, the test results from after doing the measurement. So you get like a table view as well here. So if I go and apply some test results here. So we have this option as well to help you fill column below. So it's gonna, do the same thing for all the circuits there. Let's call it under here. And then same thing with that. Okay, so you have, these details to quickly. So the ZS, so 1.1. If you have RCDs, the RCD time, disconnection, current. So, okay, I think it's quite straightforward, and so it's good to aware of this, shortcuts that we have here, to help you with automatically fill various values. And here you're gonna get also the DB option here, which is the test result at the DB. Okay, so the test result that you complete at the DB. So this can be accessed through here, okay, with the various nodes. So after doing that, of course, you need to save, and then what we need to do, we need to go to home. So let's assume we completed all the test results, and then we need to share the project file. Okay, so it's gonna give me a my folders of my mobile. So I'm gonna choose like a cloud folder, which I may want to use. So I'm gonna use the same one. Where are you? I think I'm gonna use the hunt. So it's I think it's there. Yeah, UK forms. Okay, so I'm gonna add this here. So I'm expecting my Dropbox to update now and synchronize with this file. Okay, so this is my new project file. So I'm gonna. So now the file has been sent to the office where the certification is going to take place. The finalizing of the certificate is going to take place. And of course, here we can file and say import mobile EOM and locate that file we just created. So Dropbox and UK forms, and that's my demo 123. And you see we get the access screen explaining the structure of you're getting here. And eventually, this is how you will work with multiple engineers, because multiple engineers might send you several files. And here you're going to get the structure of each, of each file that has been sent. And you're going to have missing DBs from your design if it's a condition report, which you don't know about the DBs at the first place, or you might want to, it might be unconnected. So the engineer doesn't really know where this DB is coming from. So it's going to keep this to unconnected. So each DB can be assigned to an unconnected option here as well in the electrical distribution. So you see we have an unconnected option here. And then after, so you can choose, to insert or update or, a reference from schematic, just to make sure you're updating the model from each test result that you're receiving. At the moment, I'm going to sync all because it's identical. So I don't want to go through any of them. There's no missing anyway. You see, there's no missing or final sequence or DB. And so I'm going to sync all. So now what the software is doing, synchronizing the whole thing from the mobile app, importing the test results, okay? And which eventually those test results are going to be used in the certification. So I'm gonna, if I navigate through the test, you see here we have another source, which is the mobile EOM. So if I go to this FC1, which I think I've tested, that's the one, or maybe not. Yeah, this is yeah, I've tested DB2. So that's the one I've tested. You see 1.1. So I've just put the same result there. So here now, if I go to the UK forms, I will create a new certificate. Then you're going to get all these test results directly applied, to your. So you even get, the schedule completed based on what the schedule of the mobile app was. And of course, all these test results will be applied to your to the certificate. So this is the, you see the 200s, the 250s, and the stuff that just applied to the mobile app. So I think I'm running out of time, unfortunately. But
I've got a quick couple of ones that hopefully you can just.
Yeah.
So got some questions about a drop-down list for visuals in the mobile app. I think we're going to look at the observation and limitation sides on the mobile app in the next webinar. But there is a number of things that we've done that aren't on the current version that's out, which we're just currently testing before we put it out for general release. There's also a question of whether or not the description field in the app is limited in length to the number of characters you can put in there. Is there anything on that you can add?
You mean here?
Yeah, in the mobile app. Sorry.
In the mobile app, no, there's no any limit there, I guess.
Yeah, so you can put in the same number of characters that's in the core software as you can in the mobile.
Yeah, eventually everything is going to end up here. So we have a limit of characters here because eventually it's going to reference the design. But in any case, if you want to add information here, as I said at the very first introduction, you can just unlock the design, okay? And then you can type whatever you want here, okay? So you see, this is directly from the design, but I'm able to unlock it. I'm allowed to unlock it. It's up to me to do whatever I want, right? So I'm unlocking it.
The examples you've seen that we're using here, I mean, they're just sort of the default information that sort of pops up. You can even if you go into the circuit edit and you want to increase the put more
you can
it's doing, you can put that information in there and it will also appear in
applied
applied there. So I've got another question. What platform will the mobile OM? It's currently on the Android in beta, but it has been written for both Android and iOS. We're coming to a point now where we're going to be releasing shortly on both platforms. So it will be on both platforms available soon. What else we got here? We've got quite a few questions just popping up here. On my version, it won't let me add in the test results section as I couldn't access the origin to say. Sorry, Luke, I'm not entirely sure what you're getting at specifically there. If there is an issue, by all means, email me and I'll get online with you and we can have a quick look and see what's happening there. Because if there is a bug, we'd like to know about it. It's part of the reason why we do the whole beta. And if there is something there we need to address, then we'll look directly at that. And yet the other questions again just sort of popping up in and around are about the platform for the mobile app. Can we exclude circuits as well as DBs on the certificates? At the moment, in this current version, no. But we are looking at having the process in place where you can exclude certain circuits on distribution boards as well. So if you're doing an installation certificate on an existing installation where you're only adding a single circuit to that board, you can exclude all the other circuits from that particular board.
Sorry, Spencer, what's that?
So he's asking about the being able to exclude. So where we have the exclude options. So
here, yeah.
We'll take over a bit here. So
to be able to exclude a specific row here.
He wants to be able to exclude a specific row.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Final circuits. But it is something that we have discussed and something we're looking at doing.
All right, yeah, sure.
Not in this current build, but it is on our radar to be done. Can you look at RCDs being protected on the cert as it's protected upstream? So, if you've got upstream RCD protection on a particular circuit, it will know that there is RCD protection in that system, yeah.
Yeah, one note here, Spencer, is when you have TN systems and we have this check here that the RCD should be, used only for additional protection, because eventually what you like here to make sure is that the overcurrent part of the device is going to be responsible for protecting you during the fault. But of course, is that something which you cannot achieve, you can then uncheck this option and then the RCD will be responsible. And so the certificate will take whatever you are defining here, okay? So at the certificate part, when you have, where is it? The sensitivity part here and the maximum ZS part, then it will look at the options that you have here on this design, how this circuit you like to behave, and update the relevant values accordingly. So, but of course, in TT systems, this should be the default state because RCD is supposed to be used for protection, for RESTful protection as well.
Yeah. So it does see the upstream device.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
There's also lots of other things it's doing in the background there with the selectivity studies and these sorts of things in there. So it's all part of it. So Also, someone's asked about carrying out a percentage EICR. Can we show circuits already tested? Again, that's something we'll be looking at as part of the excluded section. So if you're doing a percentage when you're excluding certain circuits on a board, if you're only doing a 20% test or 15% test, whatever it is that you've agreed with your client, you can identify on there which circuits have been tested and which ones haven't. And I believe that's the main body of the questions there. Conscious we have gone a little bit over time. So I hope today's webinar has been informative for everyone. I mean, we've tried to get some of the more complex items in there. In the next webinar, we will be taking a much closer look at the mobile app and how we're collecting data in the mobile app. You'll be able to see how we bring in data, and it will pre-populate things like schematics if you don't have an existing design in there. There was a number of questions popping up. I'm not sure if they were from the same person or different people, but in terms of being able to import PDF certificates to populate and check the design against those. Unfortunately, we don't have a methodology in doing that at the moment. However, if somebody is using another program that we already have an agreement with, which is EasyCert, if you bring in their certificates into the software digitally, it will produce the certificate within the software to then be checked against the design if necessary. People are asking, when is the application webinar? When do we have an idea of the plan for when the next date of the next webinar is going to be? Are we looking next week? Or?
Yeah, we're looking at next couple of weeks, maybe. The best case scenarios could be next week, or 2 weeks time. So yeah, we're gonna let you know, of course, and we try to do this as soon as possible. As you see, we're implementing stuff, we're developing all the time, so we want to make sure that what we're going to present is something which is going to be relevant. And of course, I'm glad to say that we have people using the software that really gave us a lot of feedback and explain the methodology they would like to see in the software. And this is what we're trying to to improve and include in the system to make sure that it's going to address most of the part that you're dealing with every day, and make sure that it's something productive that we're delivering here. We'll try to do this as soon as possible.
There are a few things in the mobile app that we are currently working on to sort of get ready for the next webinar. One of the reasons why we really focus mainly on the core software today. So hopefully when we come around from that, we'll have something quite impressive to show you that we've been working on. I think that's some of the more core questions. There are a few little questions I know people have been asking about some of the functionality in the mobile app. We will contact you separately from this just to clear up any final questions that I haven't been able to get through today. So if you do have any further information that you would like, by all means email us, and hopefully if you can join us for the next webinar, you'll see more information coming from our mobile app and how that also integrates in there. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Dimitri, before we finish up?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there are many things and the time is, limited, but yeah, I would try to cover this on the next one and focus on the mobile app and the condition reports and working with multiple engineers, trying to, put things in a real situation, a real environment, how you should cope with all these details to optimize the workflow here and get the best of the system. So I guess that's it for today, and I would like to thank everybody and for joining, and hopefully we're gonna see you on the next one.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thank you.